he said, do not try to save all the money you can, but think about how you can make more. And that stick with me forever. And that's usually like the common ground for entrepreneurship. So if you have a growth mindset, you typically find ways to either start something or join something where you can experience hyper growth. I think that's the only way to become an international company, is to have diversity inside of the company. A very important quality is risk tolerance. You should feel comfortable with change and with taking risks. I think many founders end up with degrading health at some point, because actually this is a horrible job. I mean, it consumes you completely at some point, and many points. You burn out many times. Vasil actually, he's. I was telling him, Vasil from Telerik, about burnouts in the company. He was like, "Oh, I hate when someone complains about burnouts. I mean, I burned out like hundreds of times." And I mean, yeah, it's part of the job. Good.
Very empathetic.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I think it's part of the game.
Oh, okay. Hello and welcome to the Recursive podcast. My name is Irina, and it is my pleasure to host here today's guest, Miroslav Miroslavov, co-founder and CEO of OfficeRnD. Hello, Miro.
Hi, Irina. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I would suggest that maybe in the beginning we go back in time to your first entrepreneurial journey. I think you set up your first business when you were 15 or 16. How did this affect your life journey since then?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting story, actually. I think I wouldn't classify it necessarily as a business, but certainly it was an entrepreneurship endeavor. So I'm from a small town in north of Bulgaria called Pleven. So Pleven is not very business savvy business. There aren't many opportunities for people to actually work. So when we were 15 with a couple of friends, we seriously were thinking about what can we do and where we can work over the summer holidays. And there weren't anything out there that you can do. So that's like early 2000. And we started brainstorming ideas, what we can do actually, how we can be productive and help our families and ourselves with some money and stuff. And we came up with the idea to set up a marketplace for old textbooks. So people were able to offer their textbooks for selling at a price they wanted to. We could have added some margin on top. And then there was also a price to place the textbooks on the marketplace. So it was a very physical thing. So we rented a space, we set it up. Of course, we got some help from our parents. It actually, we even invested a little bit in marketing. So we've got some publications out in the local newspapers and stuff. So it was a real thing. And it picked up real quick. Like, I think by the end of the first summer, we probably sold more than several thousand books.
Wow.
And textbooks and stuff. We made a lot of money. Like, it was probably for the summer period. We were 4 of us or 3 of us. Each of us made probably the same amount of money that our parents were making for a year. And we were like, fuck, that works. So it was very cool. We did that for the next probably several summers until we graduated high school. So that was 9th grade. We did it in 10th, 11th. And then we graduated and we went all together to study computer science. And that was the end of the textbook marketplace.
That's an amazing story. I mean, if you were born in the States, I would say, okay, that's actually like a typical journey for a founder, but in Pleven.
Yeah.
and your parents weren't entrepreneurs themselves?
Well, my father actually, he was. He had a small firm back in the days, probably one of the very first companies in Pleven that was, how it's called in English, setting up the land after the regime went over. So it was to actually return the land to the people.
I think maybe privatization
Yes,
after.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So he was. I'm not sure in English. Geodesist. I mean,
okay, doesn't matter. We can check it
yeah,
up
it
later.
doesn't matter. So he actually used to have a company, and probably that helped me to think about entrepreneurship as a possible opportunity. I mean, it was very difficult. I even remember the very early days of the difficult times in Bulgaria back then, when he was making a lot of money, but the money actually literally disappeared overnight. It was like the hyperinflation things. I literally remember that he was explaining me, yesterday we had such amount, and now you cannot even buy
which year was
small.
that? That was the hyperinflation, I think 96,
yeah,
97, something. I also remember
96.
it as a very dramatic period, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he was having a company back then. It was a challenging time, yeah.
I guess being an entrepreneur also includes taking some risks. And sometimes things really go south. Okay, would you say that in a way he was your mentor? I was actually thinking, is there someone who really influenced your shaping as a person, as a founder? Do you have a mentor?
Yeah, totally. I think throughout the years, I've had many people influenced my entrepreneurship kind of journey. Certainly, the first one was my father. Then the second one probably was actually my co-founder at Telerik, at OfficeRnD. So the other Miro's father. So he's still having a small shop for custom built furnitures in Pleven. And when we were super young, I remember super clearly how he told us it's not important, and it's not the most important thing to save money, but it's to make more money. And I was like, I couldn't understand it at first, but then it started to shape out really like, wow, that's interesting. So it's not just in Bulgaria, we are naturally, and probably in most of Eastern Europe, we're naturally bound to let's save as much money as we possibly can because of certainty, whatever. it's super natural to not spend any money on anything. And that was very controversial for me back then. He said, do not try to spend, to save all the money you can, but think about how you can make more. And that stuck with me forever. So that was like the second kind of mentor. And then probably the next layers of mentors were the Telerik founders and Vasil and Zarko. They definitely helped me a lot and basically shaped me as a better entrepreneur.
Thank you for mentioning Telerik. Actually, that was also my next question. So you studied computer science in Sofia, and then you started at some point at the Telerik company. What do you think was so unique about this company that it produced so many founders and really cool individuals over the year? We actually refer to it as the Telerik mafia. Yeah. What is so special about the Telerik mafia?
Back in the days, there weren't. So when Telerik was growing, so say early 2010 and a little before that, there weren't that many, let's say, more typical startups in Bulgaria. Certainly, Telerik was the most recognizable name, and I think overall that managed to attract a lot of the not just high quality engineers and high quality professionals, but also people with entrepreneurship mindset. I think also the Christo Georgiev, who was the HR at Telerik, and also the Telerik founders, they did a really good job at hiring people that have a certain mindset for growth. And I think that basically stayed with the company until the end. So it was all about growth, personal and company, and all of that. And that's usually like the common ground for entrepreneurship. So if you have a growth mindset, you typically find ways to either start something or join something where you can experience hyper growth. And I think as a result, when Telerik was acquired, all those people with growth mindset managed to figure out how to either start something or join something that's growing, and they can contribute to the growth.
And that was also the start of OfficeRnD. From what I know, you sold your stock options.
Yes.
After the acquisition. And what did you learn from making that leap?
Well, I mean, first of all, the stock options were, I think, very important element of Telerik's success overall, because I think the spillover effect was super important. So obviously, the Telerik founders could have been, I mean, they could have just keep all the upside for themselves, but they decided not to, and to share it with as many people as they possibly can. And that certainly helped trigger the next wave of entrepreneurs, I think, because it's so much easier to start a company when you already have some financial security. So after me and Miro and so many other people cashed the options, it's not like a life-changing amount, but it's certainly an amount that can give you a couple of years of absolute freedom, and that's, I mean, that's important. That's important to make you feel safe and to make you feel in a mood that you can experiment, you can do stuff, you can lose whatever, but it's you can just try.
What did you do? What is the first thing that you do after taking the money?
Well, we didn't have any time actually to do anything, because we literally the acquisition was about at the end of 2014. I think we cashed the options probably February, and March, first week of March, we ended up in London being part of the Pileups Accelerator with OfficeRnD. So we literally had a week of of not doing much. Or actually, we were probably doing way more than before, because we were already working on OfficeRnD. So it was, there was no break at all. So couldn't really experience any joy, let's say.
There is this joke that we have, I think, in Bulgaria, that you're going to rest when you are dead, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great story. And how much of the philosophy that you have learned at Telerik back then are you applying now at OfficeRnD?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to apply the whole of it, everything that we remember. Even sometimes it feels like, I mean, we are not Telerik. Let's build something else, But there are so many people from the mafia. We're trying to apply, of course, everything around the culture. So growth mindset is super important. Understanding that we're here to grow and help the company grow and satisfy the customers. The other thing that actually Telerik was notorious and made it a huge success was the customer first mindset. So the Telerik logo and motto was deliver more than expected, and that was like in the blood of the company. Deliver more, make the customers happier, do whatever it takes for the customer. And I think we also managed to not just keep that, but even take it to a next level at OfficeRnD, trying to customers as happy as we possibly can. And that's super important. Obviously, from entrepreneurship point of view, all the options and all that, we set them up absolutely early on, like the first stage, and we're constantly sharing options with employees, constantly adding more option pools and all that. So now with next rounds, we'll add another level of another pot of options. So at the end, probably, we'll share as much as it's possible with with everyone from the company.
You mentioned before that the customer first mindset. I'm thinking that, in our region, especially in the, let's say, ex-communist countries, this is not something which is inherent in our philosophy, in our mindset. How do you develop that in a company which is more or less based in Sofia, and how can we maybe even develop that more in the ecosystem, in our society?
Yeah, well, I think overall that's changing, and the new generation is certainly having a different mindset, and that probably something we can see with more and more new businesses, not just in the IT, where I think in IT and tech, that's like common ground. You have no chance not to deliver an outstanding customer service. I think that overall we are seeing change in the entire ecosystem, and most now newer businesses, let's say, are focusing on the customer experience, on the service they're offering and all that. So I think it's a natural evolution. I do hear you. I mean, historically, Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, it's horrible in customer service. And everywhere you go, you're like, oh, I can't believe this. It's fascinating how bad it can be. But I think this will change inevitably. Probably the more difficult to change is actually real estate, because still a lot of those people with very backwards kind of mindset, they're owning the real estate and all these hotels on the seaside and restaurants. It will take a while for them to change, but they'll be forced to. I mean, I guess, I hope. But
hope so
I think
too.
for us and probably for most of the IT companies, it's supernatural. I mean, you haven't really even thought about it. It's just the way it is. You either deliver an outstanding customer service or you don't have a customer. It's very simple.
Isn't that the secret for growing an international company, a global company? Is it, some kind of competitive advantage that you can use?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an absolute prerequisite. If you want to build an international company, you have to be customer first, and overall, you have to be inclusive as well. Like, you have to try to put yourself in the shoes of the customers. You have to put yourself in the shoes of employees that are, let's say, not Bulgarians, not Eastern Europeans, but, for example, Americans or British or Australians or whatever, because we're all different people and different races and whatever. So if you don't, you can easily make very big mistakes. like especially inside of the company, if you let some I'd say Eastern European kind of stuff to propagate in the company culture, that can be a disaster if you try to be international company.
Give me an example of Eastern European stuff.
I think one good example is we have a different perception for racism and for diversity and inclusion and in general. And it's not like we're bad people or something. We just haven't experienced it the same way as, say, the Americans have experienced it, and therefore the sensitivity is different. And if we don't understand that, things that for us may seem like, I mean, it's not like I don't like these people, but it's just whatever. I mean, we just have a higher sensitivity, lower sensitivity for these problems, and that can create a really big problems along the way. And I've seen it in all kind of Bulgarian American companies I've been part of. We just the different sensitivity can result in a really significant issues. So it's important for us to travel more and experience more different cultures and understand that different people are different and they have different history, and you cannot joke the same way with everyone the way you're joking with your friends in Pleven. For example.
I hear you and I totally understand you. I had some experience in Austria, and I remember my first time when I was telling a Jewish joke. Sorry for it. And the reaction back then was totally different in Vienna than something that we are used to at school in Bulgaria. And then it also made me think about diversity. Great point that you're actually bringing up. So when we speak about the ecosystem, would you say that if we want to become like a really competitive innovation destination, we need to develop a more inclusive mindset and welcome diverse people, maybe from all over the world, and attract them? Would you agree with that?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's the only way to become an international company, is to have diversity inside of the company. The diversity inside of the company creates opportunities and set up a mindset that helps you conquer the bigger market out there. We've always tried to have diversity inside the company, so we have literally all the different races out there, all the different religions, all the different, as many nationalities as we possibly can, and we love it. I mean, we seriously try to be as diverse as possible. It's not easy in Bulgaria, honestly, because there aren't that many, but anywhere else, I love it. It's so amazing when you actually also bring these together and people learn from each other. I think that's tremendously valuable thing. And the only way to really be a global successful company. I mean, I don't want to sound like a corporate diversity and inclusion officer because they're so full of BS in my opinion, but
True.
That especially for the new generation of companies, the earlier you set it up, the better, and not wait for like Uber to become a massively successful company just to figure out that your culture is a complete mess because of
Thank you for this example.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.
We often refer to our startup ecosystem as a bubble. And I've been thinking many times of maybe you can also think with me on that matter. How can we multiply the success of the startup ecosystem, the IT bubble, in other sectors in our economy, but also in our society at large?
Yeah. Well, I think we just need to blow the bubble as much as we possibly can. I mean, we need to make it as big as we can. And when we make it huge, it will spill over everything else, obviously, because the more people get their developer or whatever salaries, the more they will spend it on so many things. And now, especially, by the way, with COVID, I think the spillover effect will be amazing throughout the entire country, not just Sofia, because so many people will be able now to work from Veliko Trnovo, Varna, Plovdiv, whatever, and they will still have almost the same salaries as in Sofia, and this will help everything else. Inevitably, they'll be able to buy expensive things. They'll be able to spend the money in local businesses and local services, and those people are not afraid to spend money. I think that's also a big difference that's going on. Like the new generation is okay to pay for services, which is amazing. I mean, this is how you can create opportunities for other businesses, because when there is enough critical mass to pay for services, you can create actually high quality services and therefore become a reasonably good business. So I think the more successful startups and I would say product companies we built, even better. I think there is a huge difference between blowing the bubble with outsourced teams and product companies where and not just product companies, but actually product companies where the equity value remains in Bulgaria. So there is a huge difference in the equity being in Uber, and yeah, it's a product company with a product team in Bulgaria, which is nice. I mean, it's good. However, being a product company with the equity being owned by Bulgarians, it's another level of good thing, because the Telerik spillover effect happened because the equity was owned mostly by Bulgarians. And therefore, their ability to make a difference is very different after the exit. So obviously the founders, but also all the other employees like myself and another few hundred people, it's not that just they made like a good living while Telerik was growing and our salaries were pretty good, but also when that equity converted to cash, that was $260 million, almost completely back in the ecosystem. I mean, yeah, there was Summit, fine, but like huge part of that was stayed in Bulgaria and started to multiply, like blowing the bubble up. And there is now OfficeRnD, there is Payhawk, there is GTM Hub, and so many other great companies.
I'll bring you back to this topic in a bit later in the conversation. But before that, because you mentioned also the COVID, I wanted to ask you a bit more about the past year, because I can only guess that managing office spaces and offices wasn't really a big thing in 2020, and maybe still is difficult.
Managing an empty office is great.
Yes. So how were you dealing with the COVID crisis and the situation? What did you do?
Yeah, I mean, we expected a complete apocalypse because obviously we thought most co-working spaces will be literally wiped out, because the beauty of co-working and flexible workspace is this flexibility that can give you, you can literally cancel your contract and move out, and there is nothing to stop you. And we thought, okay, they're gonna lose all their customers, and therefore they'll shut the doors and we'll cancel OfficeRnD. Fortunately, that didn't happen. They lost a lot of customers, but not all of them. So unlike the hospitality industry in real estate, where you have restaurants and hotels, where you have high transactions volume, like you need someone to physically walk in order to actually use the service and therefore get some payment. In the offices, even in co-working spaces, most companies still had to keep some of their offices open, and therefore, for example, we scaled our office, but we still kept half of it because there was constantly people actually using it when they could. And as a company, you cannot just say, okay, we're not going to have an office. I mean, that's fine. So a lot of our customers lost members, but only like, I'm saying only, which for them it's huge, but it's not like a complete disaster, like 20-30% of their membership. So they dropped occupancy from 90% to say 60%, but that was enough for them to survive, and therefore to keep us there and so forth. So from that perspective, yeah, it was a very difficult year, but a very exciting year from the perspective of what's coming in the post-COVID world. So we always knew that's gonna result in even more demand for flexibility. Okay. The question was, is it gonna be in a year time, in 2 years time, or in 5 years time? Because I mean, not 5 probably. I mean, if COVID sticks around for 5 years, that's gonna be a huge disaster. But we always knew at some point, I mean, it's not like at the beginning, but at some point we realized, probably like month 3, we realized that's going to be huge in the future, but we don't know when is that future. So let's try to preserve our investment in cash now so that we can start growing when we can see the end of it. Mm-hmm. And this is what we did probably a few months ago. So a few months ago, we thought, okay, we're seeing the end of it. Also, we clearly see the signs of demand for flexible spaces growing to a much higher levels than pre-COVID. And we thought, okay, let's go. And we pushed on hiring and everything that we can, so that we are ready for the new reality. We opened up a whole new world for us, which is so-called hybrid work. So we are now going to introduce in the upcoming weeks a whole new product, which is to actually manage a distributed workplace, which, for example, is, say, OfficeRnD is 120 people company in Bulgaria, and we have 2 HQs in Sofia, not 1 but 2, so that people actually have options, and then few so-called hub spokes, or basically smaller hubs in other cities. So, for example, in Plovdiv, Varna, and whatever. And people can work in a hybrid way where a certain time, depending on the position. So some positions require more collaborations with other team members and teams overall. Other positions do not require such things, so they can be either fully remote, if they're super technical, or partially remote, like few days from home, few days from a local, and I'm saying local, or maybe an HQ. So the result is basically a complicated network of workspaces where people can work from. and to manage that, it's a challenge. So we actually are introducing a new product line which is built specifically for that niche. It's called hybrid work. Yeah.
Hybrid work. So you say that we're moving towards a more complex model of how do we build offices and how do we work together in office spaces, and you adapt it in such way that the management that is going to need to manage this complex system is going to be OfficeRnD. Okay.
Yes. I'll just give you a glimpse of a couple of, let's say, features or benefits of using such platforms. So basically, is to be able to define the workplace policy of the company. So, for example, these teams needs to be working together a certain amount of time in a collaboration environment like the office, and then give the tools in the hands of the employees to actually organize that, book it, and then be able to track the results. So, did they follow the corporate policy, and how you utilize the space at the end of the day? So, for example, we are 120 people. We have in total 60 desks in few hubs. Did we really use 60 desks? Were we at like 100% occupancy? If so, maybe we need a little bit more because maybe some people weren't able to book because there wasn't availability. Maybe we need less, therefore we can reduce the size of certain locations. Maybe in certain locations we need more, but in others less because it's less attractive or whatever. Not many people live nearby and that kind of stuff. So now we will be giving the tools in the hands of the end companies. The idea basically is that most companies will work in a hybrid way, I think, and it's very much related to the flexible working, because the result of hybrid working is a flexible working. You cannot have a hybrid work and every single person in the office having a dedicated desk, because if you're only going to the office 2 days, it's unreasonable to have your own desk if you're only going to use it like 30% of the time. And that's a huge cost for the companies. So to change that, basically, first of all, you need a platform, and then you introduce hybrid way of working. Most companies already did that, like Google announced it, Apple announced it, whoever. Every other company already announced it. There are some banks going in the opposite direction. But it's fair. I mean, I think overall in the future of work, we'll see everything. We'll see companies pushing completely to the old way of doing things, companies pushing way too much in the new way, which probably might not work at the times because for different reasons. I think overall the future of work will settle somewhere in the middle, and we'll see all of it.
I can only imagine that we're entering a stage where we will be experimenting with the office space as it is. I imagine it also that at some point we will build it as I call it sanctuary, a physical space where you can relate to certain values, to a community, to when you develop also a certain sense of belonging. Because this is what I sensed over the pandemic at some point, that we were so remote and we were fully equipped to work remote from the beginning of our organization, but we somehow missed, the physical space, because I think our brains are still very connected to physical spaces.
Yeah, no, totally. And at the end of the day, we want to see each other. I mean, it's good to see each other. It's good to have a physical contact with people. It's true. It's very natural at the end.
True.
And
so adaptability is definitely, part of the mindset of a fast-growing company. What else would a founder need in the stage that you're currently at? And from what I see, when I look at the numbers, you're growing at this point very fast and very intense. How do you manage that?
I think probably a very important quality is risk tolerance. You should feel comfortable with change and with taking risks, and just feel comfortable when you are replacing the engine of the plane while you're flying. It sounds horrible, but sometimes you have to do that, and if you panic, obviously the result will be death. So the only reasonable thing that you can do is to just stay calm and push forward. And I think overall risk taking is something that can be improved overall in Eastern Europe and in Bulgaria. I think overall we have a very little tolerance for risk taking as a nation, and even in all the tradition and all the kind of traditional saying and what mothers and grandmothers are saying, it's all about not taking risks and stay safe and whatever, which is the absolute opposite of what you should be doing as an entrepreneur and a founder, disregarding what stage you are. Even we are now a 100 people company, it's still the tolerance for risk taking should be super high, because this is the only way you can keep innovating, keep growing, and keep making a change that's necessary, because everything's changing super fast. So you need to feel comfortable with all that. Otherwise, you're either stress out too much and give up, or you're not gonna make fast enough moves.
Is sport somehow helping you to stay calm? You say often that it's a fundamental part of your everyday life.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think sport is, for me personally, it's the only way to stay sane. Probably people have different ways. That's my thing. So first of all, it gives me obviously the energy boost and staying healthy and fit, but also gives me this competitiveness and a place where you can be competitive. I think that's also very helpful overall as an entrepreneur, to be really competitive. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to want to win. I mean, it's important to play the game for the game, but also, I mean, and especially in tech entrepreneurship, it's very unfortunate thing. I mean, there is only one winner usually in every category, and if you're not the one winner, it's a very difficult place. the second position in every SaaS business and in every tech business, it's very difficult position. It's like barely making a living, and then the third position, it's not good.
So you're not okay with the second or the third place. I mean, often you also say that you admire sports people or, tennis players like Djokovic or Federer who have this kind of mindset of winning at all costs. Would you say that you're like that?
Yeah, I admire them. I'm not like that. I'm trying to be more like that, to be honest. I'm more like Grigor Dimitrov, which I don't like.
Very honest of
because
you. Thank you.
he's really, in my opinion, very amateur opinion, I would say, the kind of guy that's having all the technical, and he's as good as everyone else in the top three in terms of physical and technical abilities. But the mentality is not the same. So he's not going to win at any cost. I think even Maria Sharapova, in her book, he mentioned that he's the kind of guy that wants to win elegantly with a beautiful game. And when your game is not, and in tennis, it's very horrible game. I mean, when things don't work, they just don't work, and you cannot change it, and it gets worse. So when he is not playing well, he's fine to lose. I mean, he's just okay. I mean, I'm not playing well. This guy deserves to win more than I do. Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, they don't give a shit. They don't lose. Never, ever, ever, ever. I mean, they will die there literally, but they are not going to let anyone else win. That's a huge difference. And I'm personally not exactly like this. I'm somehow too nice in many occasions, which helps, but it's also a concern, and it depends on the circumstances. So this may lead you to a very big success in some markets, but in other markets, certainly you'd better be like Djokovic and Nadal. You'd better be like them, because the others won't let you be nice there and win. They will just crush you completely.
I see.
And our market for now is fine, but it's getting more and more competitive because now it's growing. And we'll have to up our game significantly in terms of competitiveness and our willingness to win at any cost. By the way, from that perspective, I remember at Telerik, it was crazy. I mean, we were so competitive that you cannot even imagine the whole concept of, and the whole, customer first, that's always been the case. However, I remember super clearly our competitors, we were having them in front of us daily, and everyone was dedicated to learn everything about them and figure out how to be better than them at any cost. Any cost. Like, there is nothing you should not do in order to crush them, be better than them, and whatever. And that's it's by the way, it's challenging. I mean, it's something that we are not used to in Bulgaria, but I think especially I think the Americans usually are so much better than us in this. They're so competitive and so dedicated to winning.
I have always imagined, that the attitude of winning at all costs is somehow connected to ego. And I wanted to bring you also to something else that I wrote about your culture, that maybe it's not valid anymore, but you say in one interview that your motto at OfficeRnD is that we don't have an ego. Yeah. We left ours at home. Isn't that somehow disturbing the attitude of winning at all costs and the competitiveness?
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's kind of related to being nice, I think, But also, I would say if you're Djokovic, you can be out there and say, I'm the number one, because you're fucking number one. I mean, you're not gonna lie. But if you're Grigor and you come out and say, I'm the number one, and everyone will be like, are you really? And you behave like number one. Well, I mean, no.
Yeah.
And I think the ego, usually it's like not letting yourself be fooled that you are better than someone else.
Okay.
And so not having an ego, for example, is to be open and with yourself and saying, yeah, actually this competitor did a better job. It's bad, it's difficult, but we didn't do that good of a job. They did a better job. So how can we be better next time? And usually having the high ego won't let you accept that. It will be like, no, and then figure out a million reasons why they did better, and just, you know, explain to yourself that it's not your fault, something else happened, whatever.
Something outside of you, but something objective
Exactly.
in the environment.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, and I think these two, I mean, and even these absolutely top players, you're rarely gonna see them having a super high ego and saying that they are the number one and whatever, I think.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. I mean, you have to have an ego, by the way. And but that's a very difficult topic. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is somewhat part of being a leader, to have a confidence, but you have to figure out the boundaries and when it's your fault and whatever, and be open-minded and be kind and nice enough to accept it and be able to say it out loud. Yes, I made a mistake. It's my mistake. I take responsibility. And I'm not the number one thing.
I remember once I was listening to a pilot, like a real pilot who was, flying a plane. And he mentioned a phrase that I really liked, which was confident humility.
Okay, yeah.
You know, being humble enough to accept that you're a human being and you're going to make mistakes. You're prone to make mistakes. This is who you are. It's in your DNA. But although you're making mistakes, still remain confident in your abilities and in your skills. I think this is very difficult. Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
So I promised you that I would like to bring you back to the topic of exit.
Okay.
So I know that this is a hypothetical game, but still, how do you envision yourself as, the co-founder of OfficeRnD, like, let's say in 5 years? You managed a successful exit. You're an investor. You're a mentor.
Okay.
Maybe you're retired on a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean. I don't know. You name it. What is your vision for yourself as a founder at this stage? Right.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'd love to start another company. It's really the case. I don't think whatever successful exit it is, I don't think I will be either retiring or becoming a professional investor or something like that. I'd be another founder.
Okay.
I prefer to be in the trenches and start over.
Thank you. Great.
And I think that's, by the way, something good, and I hope more people will be repeating founders or whatever. Serial founders. Yeah, yeah, because I mean it adds value. That you learn the what. You'd better use that. You'd better use that again. And it's not a coincidence that guys like Elon Musk can start 3 companies, 5 companies, 100 companies, and they all be successful because they really know things that most of us don't, because we haven't really experienced it before. They did, and that allowed them to start again and be successful again.
So they figured out something about entrepreneurship that is unique, regardless of how many industries you're building a company.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. I think many founders that been through this, they figured so many things, and that's a knowledge that you can try to translate it to other people with mentorship. And I'd love to do that. I'll certainly do it, and I'm trying even now to do it. But you cannot transfer all the knowledge, and certainly giving another try and starting another company, I think it's a really good thing. Of course, it depends on the state of your physical state. I think it's very important also to take good care of yourself. I think many founders end up with degrading health at some point, because actually this is a horrible job. I mean, it consumes you completely at some point, and many points. You burn out many times. And Vasil, actually, he's I was telling him, Vasil from Telerik about burnouts in the company. He was like, "Oh, I hate when someone complains about burnouts. I mean, I've burned out like hundreds of times, and I mean, yeah, it's part of the job." Good.
Very empathetic.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I think it's part of the game.
Oh, okay. We call the recursive because in a way we believe that when you repeat something, just as you said about entrepreneurship, you actually become better. It's not a repetition, but it's not a cycle, a catch-22, but it's more like a spiral. And I think this refers also very good to innovation. And in this sense, I would like us, to think. I would like you to think of a question that will give a kick to the conversation with our next guest. We call this the recursive question at the podcast. Okay. Yeah,
that's amazing. Great. Okay. Well, so give me a second. So we are on the topic of exits. So say theoretically, you make a huge exit, like the UiPath type of exit, where it's a multi-billion-dollar company and you cash out more than $1 billion. Where and how do you invest $1 billion in Bulgaria?
So no way to avoid it. I have one last question, and it's a bit philosophical. So thinking back maybe even further in time in the future, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, that's a very, very good one. Certainly being a good person. That's fine. Second, making a difference in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Bulgaria. Like, I think overall that's the only reasonable way to make a better country out of our territory. So entrepreneurship is the only reasonable endeavor, in my opinion, to drive it forward, because everything else follows. Like, if we have successful businesses, we'll end up with a better country for everyone. So I hope to be remembered as someone who helped in this journey.
Thank you for this answer. I really hope that you will figure out, this hack of how to be nice as an entrepreneur, still competitive, and contribute to a more entrepreneurial country where we all can benefit from. Thank you, Miroslav, for being here with us today, and I wish you lots of success, and keep your visions before you. I heard that it's actually helping achieving the.
That's true, I guess. Thanks so much for having me, and all the best for you and the Recursive.
Thank you.
Tune in next week for the second episode of the Recursive podcast. Georgi talks to one of the co-founders of Telerik and Telerik Academy, Svetozar Georgiev.
Well, on a purely emotional level, I feel good when I'm helping others and giving back. I honestly actually feel better when I'm giving than when I'm receiving something. And I'm pretty sure this is fundamental psychology, and many people are like this. But more important than that is the fact that I try to act as a catalyst, not just provide funding or in-kind help, which would then disappear, or which is not enough to move the needle. I try to invest in areas where this could start an avalanche, where I can, tip something and then it somehow can grow and be sustainable. And I accidentally use the word invest a second ago, but I really treat my philanthropical activities as an investment in the future, investment into organizations or in communities which I might not get direct return in some way, and that's not the goal, but I'll certainly get an indirect return by enjoying better environment, better society, or just knowing that I manage somehow to help others alter their lives for the better.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.